what, according to you, would be the definition of effectiveness in current times?
Actually, I'm going to counter that. I think the definition is and always will be business impact, right? Because excellence today or earlier has always been about driving business impact, right? But yes, what does change is the way you can better power yourself to drive impact.
How is MMA recalibrating its framework?
So we are also able to sort of evolve our focus areas and our frameworks sooner.
D2C startups really have that runway where they can keep working so long till they can see the flywheel really turn around for them.
Firstly, have to appreciate the fact that one of the reasons why D2C brands have been very successful is because of their agility.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Campaign Unscripted. Today I have with me Moneka Khurana. She is the country head for MMA Global India and she's also MMA India's board member. We are at the sidelines of MMA Smarties Unplugged India. This is where marketers come to understand what it really means to have campaigns that land, not just with the audience, but amongst their peers. So Moneka, let's start with the Smarties shortlist. The shortlist often mirrors the state of marketing in India. Based on this year's entries, what emerging consumer trends or media trends signal a real shift in marketing effectiveness? And I mean this not just in creative expression, but also in measurable outcomes.
The shifts that we saw when we were looking at the work is that the storytelling has become more powerful, but yet it has also become more purposeful. Secondly, there was deep effort being made to integrate AI seamlessly in ways where it could enhance business outcomes, it could drive ROIs, or it could hyper-personalize for the audience that they were reaching out to. Thirdly, we saw a lot more regional marketing done very, very smartly by using the right kind of micro-influencers, by leveraging cultural nuances, by playing up on festivals very effectively, and then also ensuring that the brand is integrated very organically into it. Lastly, we also saw a lot of repetition of brands working towards social impact, be it what we saw with Lay's, be it what we saw with Dove. So it was a mix of good storytelling.
So I'd like to slice each of this, and when you talk about powerful but purposeful advertising, and let's start with AI. When we are witnessing the rise of AI-driven creativity, and more interestingly, we are seeing a lot of small budget campaigns that have managed to make big impact. So do you think that marketers are using AI to solve business problems, or is it simply to stay on trend?
They are beginning to attempt using AI effectively, but there is ground to be covered. We've been trying to measure the AI maturity within the ecosystem at this point in time. It's a very early stage, so where one would say that, okay, somebody who's at 1 and 2 is an absolute beginner and just about trying to sort of explore use cases that make sense to them. And then there is the other spectrum, which is at 4 and 5, who's really advanced, matured in their journey and has been able to take AI to a level where it can be used for better predicting, like as a predictive model, for more inciting, and to genuinely be able to integrate it into ways which can deliver business outcomes. So we really have a lot of work to do, which is why even at MMA we are trying to drive ways in which we can increase the amount of experimentation happening when it comes to AI adoption in marketing. We are seeing it for right now 2 to 3 use cases are emerging the most. So for example, one, it is being used for a lot of marketing efficiency. Whether it is better campaign management, whether it is optimizing and automating creatives, whether it is better planning media. So it's primarily everything that can improve marketing workflows is where it's beginning to get used a fair bit. And the other area where it's getting used a fair bit is to be able to hyper personalize. What is not happening right, is the ability to leverage AI to get deeper insights, to actually be able to do better predictive modeling, which is where the intelligence of AI really, sort of comes in, and leveraging it for that, as well as to be able to build their own proprietary LLMs, right? The large language models, where they can actually feed a lot of their own understanding of their business, their customers, and get very, very value outcomes out of AI as a tool.
OpenAI was launched in November 2022 till, almost close to 2 years. It has been a rapid adoption.
Yeah.
Would you like to put some kind of, do some kind of crystal ball gazing as to when you start seeing this kind of predictability seep into the entire campaign management? Because that's when it will really get properly tied into the entire business outcome.
Every day there's progress. Every single day businesses, marketers are growing in terms of how they're using AI. So let me give you a very small example. At one point in time, ChatGPT was the thing. Like, anyone who used ChatGPT was like, you're modernizing your way of working. But now that's passé. Today, everyone talks Agentic AI, right? But now it's about Agentic AI, right? Like, how do you really, really build your Agentic AI stacks? How do you basically look for the right tools where you can build more Agentic AI features so that you're able to totally use AI in its fullest form, right? So it's gone much deeper, but it's far away because it takes time to build robust Agentic AI models, to really feed it with enough data input, and parallelly to be able to skill the workforce to actually be able to use it to the business advantage. The reason why I say it'll take long is more because of the mindset change that is needed, where people tend to take much longer to change mindset versus actually change the way of working.
You just mentioned about the hyper personalization, and that is something that Agentic AI can also do at scale.
Yes.
And one of the sectors that has managed to really, I wouldn't say crack the code, but really get closer to breaking the kernel slightly is quick commerce.
Yes.
And they have managed to do it, especially across all the festive seasons, adeptly at that. Do you think feed has now become the new creative currency? Speed to push out the best campaigns, speed to reach out to the consumers, whether it's intent, whether it's discovery.
Speed is no more in the space of convenience. It's just culture. It's just a way of being. It's just a new consumer habit which is only getting stronger with each passing day. It's like saying there was a time where people didn't have internet, and that was life, right? But after internet, in the remotest of the parts of the country, you're not even thinking, is there internet there, right? That's how quick commerce is becoming. It's becoming culture. And India has this huge advantage because it's such a densely populated country, right? Which allows quick commerce to become sustainable, stronger, and has scale, because there are many newer platforms which do come but aren't able to sustain because there is an ecosystem gap, or it's ahead of its time. But quick commerce is something which just has landed perfectly when it comes to the Indian context, and it will continue growing immensely. It's considered to be 10% of the e-commerce e-tail market, and there's already prediction for it to become 20% in the coming year, and it is going to be $30-40 billion an industry by 2030. Right? When we talk quick commerce, it is not just restricted to groceries and goods and stuff like that. It's also services. Urban companies also primarily playing in a similar space. So that's how powerful it's become.
So if you were to look at the aggregators, right?
Yes.
Whether it's a quick commerce aggregator, whether we look at the OTAs, most of them fall into the domain of retail media. And retail media largely look at going back to the same thing about hyper-personalization of content to reach out to consumers. But sometimes do you think that this rush to reach out or sometimes react also can be at the risk of long tail brand building? Do you think it can also isolate consumers?
Last year also we released a very powerful report on how do you built for ROIs in the D2C space. And that's also where we called it out very, very clearly that this is a long-term game. You cannot just jump into it for the moment, flirt with it and then move out, because that's not going to then help, and you will bleed if you do that. You will feel like it's not profitable. You will feel that it's just a very tactical way of just getting some higher business market share or just being discoverable. But it's not that. If you really build for it as a strategy, it has the power to deliver something called a flywheel effect, right? Like, we've been known to talk a lot about the marketing flywheel, and we are now beginning to actually start replicating that marketing flywheel for the quick commerce. The flywheel effect would be where you start on day zero and start with a very sound strategy, but eventually, as you are at it, you will suddenly see a flip, and then you will realize that, okay, you have made it to a level where you can see the flywheel effect.
In the past few years, we have seen that several homegrown D2C brands especially are dominating various categories. What is it that they're doing differently that helps them outpace a lot of global competitors? And you mentioned about the flywheel effect, So do you think D2C startups really have that runway where they can keep working so long till they can see the flywheel really turn around for them?
Fantastic. I like the question a fair bit because it's also very well timed. So we primarily firstly have to appreciate the fact that one of the reasons why D2C brands have been very successful is because of their agility. Because they're agile and because they're not following an existing playbook, they're able to innovate a lot more aggressively than what the legacy brands have been able to, because they are very, very clear that their product is the hero, right? And the more they can disrupt the product proposition and the more they innovate, the more they will be able to grow exponentially with limited resources, because primarily D2C brands will be working for a while with limited resources, because they're still in the 0 to 1,000 milestone when it comes to business and market share. So they try and max out very well on the way they drive product innovation and the agility with which they manage marketing, right? With a lot of focus on essentially sharp shooted communication and a very, very defined audience approach, which is why today creators are beginning to do so well, because D2C brands have recognized that how well creators can endorse their brands for them and how much of a role they play for it, to a point where today the creator is also the founder himself or herself, right? So that is what does the trick.
You just mentioned about agility. It is something that most of the D2C brands often display when they are in the 0 to 1 journey. But as they hit the 1 to 50 journey, the same agility is something that they start losing.
Sure.
And they end up more or less being in the lane that a lot of legacy brands find themselves in. At the same time, they might not have the scale that the legacy brands have. That's where they find themselves outflanked. And they might not have the fiscal resources as well.
Yeah.
So in such a situation, do you think that they can still rely on local insight to really sustain themselves, in the longer term, and also merit from the flywheel effect?
I would say that local insight is definite. I mean, that is something which, whether it's a young brand or a legacy brand, needs to have their pulse on. The secret sauce there is primarily to ensure reciprocity of learning. What that means is, where a young brand is always trying to borrow some best practices which have worked for legacy brands and the global brands, need to be able to adapt a lot of the best practices which has delivered quick growth and a lot of unique innovations for the young brand, right? So it's primarily how the insurgents and the incumbents exchange learnings between themselves and make it work for themselves in terms of business growth.
And one of the themes, or rather I wouldn't say the themes, the very ethos of MMA has been celebrating marketing, but also ensuring that it drives business outcomes. what has happened is in the recent times is that the very definition of effectiveness has shifted. What, according to you, would be the definition of effectiveness in current times?
Actually, I'm going to counter that. I think the definition is and always will be business impact, right? Because excellence today or earlier has always been about driving business impact, right? But yes, what does change is the way you can better power yourself to drive impact, and also the speed at which you can drive impact does change in terms of marketing excellence, right? Earlier, for example, if you had to do market research and if you had to go a very traditional way to go about it, which we normally have been doing so far, hire an agency, meet a targeted number of respondents, study it, and then, form your, sort of assessment on what is the strategy or the sweet spot for you, right? Unlike now, where you can digitize it fully and get the same outcome in 1/10 of the period that you would have got earlier. My 2 bits would be that let's leverage speed to our advantage to be able to drive marketing excellence faster and more consistently. This is like the best time where we are powered with the best in class tools. We are powered with a lot of rich resources in terms of the amount of content that's available, the amount of channels that are now helping marketers to be able to learn on the go, right? Thirdly, there are platforms like ours who are sitting on like a very, very rich showcase of cutting edge work, of inspiring work, which is not just work that you see in one market, but it is work that you see globally, right? Like you can take inspiration, be it from APAC as a region, from LATAM as a region, from EMEA as a region, right? But it's about you being able to have the mindset of learning and learning rapidly and seeing how you can apply it to your business.
So if I were to just ask you to summarize, as you leverage speed to excellence for marketing excellence,
yes,
how is MMA
yes,
recalibrating its frameworks, which you just mentioned, because now you have so much data, you have the tech tools that are there that could help you come up with results a lot more faster. So how are you using that for probably coming up with newer formats, keeping in mind the various data constraints that also exist?
Yeah.
And then there are omni-channel attributions that one needs to also keep in perspective.
Because we are a global body, we've had the advantage of being a little ahead of time, because there are a lot of best practices which have emerged, for example, in the US, and we've already been exposed to it, right? So we are also able to sort of evolve our focus areas and our frameworks sooner and bring them to India, right? To give you an example, we've had a few frameworks which have been in the US now for 2 to 3 years, but now we've actively started evangelizing in India, and we know that the market is ready for it. Like, for example, there is a framework which we call CAP, Consortium for AI Personalization, which allows marketers to personalize at scale and real time, right? Through a proprietary framework we've built, and it has proven to deliver ROIs which are like 200% or even higher, but depending on you having clarity on what is the KPI you are going to benchmark it against, right? So there have been cases where it's probably done 20%, there have been cases where it's done 75%, but there have been cases where it's doubled. So it's a function of how you set it up for yourself. But point being that framework is now very potent to sort of be deployed in India. Similarly, we have gone very active with retail media, because now is where we can see that retail media is a very potent full funnel channel, right? Now marketers are understanding that it is a full funnel platform. Like when we did a study very recently for understanding state of quick commerce, what we heard from the respondents is that they are allocating budgets upwards of 20% in retail media, with quick commerce being very integral to it, right? So that's the level of change. The beauty about retail media is that you are always exposed to intent users at all times, and the access you have to shopper signals, shopper data is so rich that you eventually will have a lot more efficiency in the campaigns and the investments you make than otherwise. So these are some of the examples, but our narratives are evolving in areas of personalization, retail media, regional media. We primarily try to lean towards anything and everything that will help shape the future of marketing and brands. And as we see it unfold, we prepare for it.
All right. So I just wanted to leave you with one final question. Do you have a timeline when you're going to release CAP in India?
CAP is already released. We already have a couple of our board members evaluating it actively, and it is just a matter of time before we'll have a POC in place.
Okay. Thank you so much, Moneka, for all the great insights that you have shared with Campaign India. It was lovely talking to you, and I can't wait to see what else MMA has in store, because I'm sure marketers are excited to know more about it.
Vice versa too, and it's a pleasure working with you and having Campaign as our partner.
Thank you so much.